What's up, guys? So, welcome back to Lifestyle Blueprints podcast, episode number 4, with one of my good friends, Jonathan Plender. He's a GED candidate at Queen's University. He's a first year law student there. And this is a great conversation, and I hope you guys all enjoy it. So, to the ones who are interested in pursuing law, he gives a great overview about the law program at Queen's University as well as law in general. So, I hope you guys all enjoy this. And I just also want to say Merry Christmas, and I hope you guys are all having a great break. It's a great time for us to mentally reset, and it just gives us that time to think about things and reflect on things. And with all that being said, I hope you guys all strive for those goals that you guys want in the new year, and hope you guys sit back and relax and enjoy this episode. All right, welcome back to Lifestyle Blueprints, episode number 4 with Jonathan Plender. He's one of my good friends from university, also from the summer, and I'm glad to have him on the show to speak about law. He's a first-year law student at Queen's University. So, how are you doing, Johnny, and how are you holding up during COVID-19?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's been good. I just finished writing my last exam today, so that was good. And I guess I'm a little desensitized to all the effects of COVID-19, just especially in terms of the last month or two, because we've had a lot of summatives due. We've had a lot of assignments. We usually law students get started on exams a few weeks in advance at least. So I've just kind of been grinding away, and that's kind of just been my life for the last month.
Nice, man. And I'm glad to hear that was your last exam and everything was good. Was a good workload and everything.
Well, I hope everything was good. The workload was definitely a lot. It was kind of a change of pace for sure, but definitely hoping for the best. Well, I guess we'll see.
All right. Well, so Johnny, I just want to say thank you for coming onto the podcast and taking the time to speak to me and speak to the listeners and viewers. I truly appreciate it, and give some insights and some knowledge about law. And hopefully you can give some of those insights and knowledge to those listeners who are interested in pursuing law. So can you tell me what inspired you to pursue law, and were there any like internal or external factors or influences that inspired you?
Um, Definitely some external ones. I'd say the primary motivation for me choosing to go to law school was more or less like a nurtured aspect of me growing up and just seeing some of the people that I respect the most in life were the parents of some of my friends who happen to be lawyers, and so I guess that's kind of where the interest is rooted. But I guess the journey to law school is kind of a natural progression. I've always been interested in politics and business, and the one thing that underlies basically every endeavor that I've ever been interested in is the law. It kind of undergirds everything that I've ever been interested in, and so it's kind of a natural progression from politics as well.
True. And we'll talk about kind of like your undergrad later, but since you did mention how it was kind of like a natural progression, when did you realize, or like what age did you realize that you wanted to pursue like law?
It's a good question. I've always seen being a lawyer as a good career opportunity, and I guess that goes back to, I guess, a really young age. The first time I ever had a true thought that it might be a career I wanted to pursue was in grade 11. I took a law class with Mr. Taylor back in Richmond Hill, and I don't know, I just took to it really naturally, and I think that that's kind of where the first instance of me really thinking that it might be something I'm interested in.
True. And listeners, that's what it's all about. So kind of finding that passion in high school and finding that course you like and pursuing that further, like Johnny said, through university, and just staying motivated and driven. So can you tell me about the law program so far at Queen's, and can you comment on the education? And yeah, can you comment on the education?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, what was the first part of that question?
Yeah, so can you tell me about the law program so far? So like it's your first year so far at Queen's, but can you kind of comment on it and how the delivery structure is so far with COVID-19?
Yeah, so the education at Queens is quite good. Definitely a step up from the undergrad, the repertoire of professors we have available to us is much more vast, and it seems like we definitely have experts in every field of the law teaching us. We have a lot of Ivy League law grads. It's definitely of high quality, and I guess in terms of how COVID-19 has impacted all of that is just obviously it's a virtual delivery, and but at Queens we're kind of lucky. We're one of the only law faculties that have any classes in person. This year we had contracts, criminal, and public law in person. And so for those courses specifically, I think the delivery is probably the same. But for the three courses we have completely online, it's definitely a change from what anybody who hasn't taken online classes are used to. It's I'd say, well, they definitely the syllabus doesn't change from year to year, so we're taking in the same amount of information, expected to know the same amount of stuff, but there's just less of a personal delivery system. It's kind of different to take notes from home versus in person. A lot of the material's recorded too, so you can go back and check it anytime, so that's helpful. But I'd say as a whole, it's definitely the best semester of education I've ever had in terms of how much I'm learning.
Nice. And like you said, it's like blended learning with COVID-19. And I was just wondering, do you learn better, or have you found that you learn better from kind of like staying at home, grinding and following these lectures, or do you find yourself like kind of motivated being in class? Like what do you find like the difference between the two, like virtual learning versus just in class?
I think the main difference is just that you feel more comfortable slacking off when you're at home and you're learning things.
Facts.
It can be, especially, if the cameras aren't on all the time, then you can catch yourself maybe scrolling through your phone while the
Yeah.
lesson is being delivered. Whereas in person, at least in the law school system, where there's cold calling and where professors make it explicit that they don't want you on your phone while they're teaching. I think if anything, staying at home kind of allows for more distraction. Um, but that's just in terms of the learning. In terms of working, I found it a lot more efficient because I'm always in my office. There's always something to do, and my desk and my setup is right here. So I find that I'm getting more done.
Nice, man. Bedroom and office combo. I like it. And just for the listeners, I don't endorse drinking beer, so this is just like kind of like an after work thing, just beer a day. So
Keeps the
um,
doctor away.
yeah, so we talked about delivery methods and how COVID-19 has impacted your education. What resources were available for studying for exams and preparing for evaluations? And like, were you able to kind of meet up with friends, or were you kind of cautious about that because of COVID-19?
Yeah, so everybody's been cautious since day one. We didn't have an in-person frosh week. We did everything virtually, and especially now that we're in law school, everyone really does take government mandate very seriously. So like
Yeah.
we were definitely we were cautious about it for sure, and it was so different for me. Um, but since then, since the law school's open and we do have classes together, every so often we would go to the law library, because that was made available to just the law students.
Yeah.
So you know how usually any student at Queens could go into the law building and go into the library.
Yeah.
So now you need your fob and you need to show them the app and do all that kind of stuff to study. And there's maximum occupancy limits in each of the study rooms. So it is really strict, but the resource that's open to us is the law building, which I'm super thankful for. I don't know that everybody in law school is having that same opportunity right now.
Perfect. And yeah, I do remember kind of like the days when I was there, and how everyone's able to access it now, but obviously with the restrictions, only law students would be able to do that. So, I mean, if COVID-19 didn't exist, do you think your education at Queens would greatly differ to what it is now?
Um, I think there's obviously a differentiation between my education and my experience. I think my education, the quality I found surprisingly, I don't think has decreased any. Like I can't imagine the professors doing a more um, effective job of teaching in person versus the ones who are strictly online. I'm still getting that quality education. I'm doing my readings. Like I said, it's the same knowledge we're required to have as if COVID-19 wasn't relevant, but the experience is so different. Like I remember last year when I worked at Trinity, I saw the law events. Like I saw Lollapalooza. I saw when they did their smokers formals and stuff like that, and I was excited for that. And so I think the lack of that this year has just created less of a social scene. But I think that the quality of the education has stayed relatively similar.
Awesome. So just basically social scene's different, but education's been the same, obviously. All right.
I think so. Obviously, I've never been in law school before this, but I assume so.
Cool, cool. So what type of evaluations and workload should like inspiring or aspiring law students expect if they are granted admission to like any law school or Queen's Law School?
The workload they should expect.
Yeah, the workload and like what did you find that changed from undergrad to graduate school and law school? Like how much percentage would you say increase?
Okay, well, firstly, I'm gonna match your energy and I'm gonna put on a hat here.
Match my energy, respect that.
Okay, now we're all
Okay.
wrapped it up.
All right, respect
Okay.
that.
So I would say that the workload that anybody coming into law school should expect versus their undergrad is just a more sustained effort. It's not really that, um, it isn't really that uh, the quality of the work is supposed to be similar. You're like professors expect a lot, but on a day-to-day basis, I just had to get really comfortable with working a sustained amount of time day over day. Whereas I know, like I'm sure you can understand what I mean when I say it's an undergrad, it was in spurts, right? So like in a week you might spend 2 days more or working harder than you would, and then the rest of the five were kind of more or less off. Whereas now it's like you have maybe three classes, 1 hour, an hour and a half each, and then after that you have to do your readings for the next day, or preferably you do your readings for like 2 or 3 days in advance, and then you get back. And so once you've done your readings, once you've gone to class, then you have to look at your notes and you have to outline. So that's, I would just say I usually wake up around 7:30, and I'll start doing a little bit of prep because I usually also have 8:30s, and then I'll probably work until early evening, maybe 5 or 6. But I'm not a huge night owl, so I don't like working too late. So I finish around dinner time, and then that's kind of my time to relax.
True. And yeah, with that being said, like in what you said, during undergrad, I found that there were spurts, like you said, that you work super hard and then you're kind of chilling. But I could see how in law school you got to keep up like with your readings and being prepared. And I commend you for your work and how hard you're working, man. I've seen you like apply for this and got through, and you've been so successful ever since. And I know there's gonna be big things coming for you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Thanks, dude. All right. So what does your day look like day to day look like right now? Is it like give me like the structure of your day? Like I guess you kind of talked about it, but tell me about like readings, like what do you do day to day for the for the listeners?
Sure. So exams are kind of a different time, so maybe I'll talk more about like a regular day to day. So like I said, I'd wake up around 7-ish, get up, and I just kind of come to my office over here and open up my notes from the day before, read them again, just make sure I actually understand them. And then if I have a reading to do, or if I have any prep for a meeting to do that day, then I'll get to that. Um, I have about an hour before class starts. So just once again, do my readings, because in law school, they have a cold call system where they'll bring up a reading. The professor will start they'll introduce the case, and then they'll just say at random, they'll pick a person and they'll ask, what were the facts of the case? And it's up to you to deliver the facts of the case correctly. Then they ask somebody else, what's the issue? What's the rule? What's the analysis? What's the conclusion? And people, you just have to be ready.
Wait,
So,
wait, sorry to cut you off, Johnny, but have you ever been called out and not been able to answer, or have you always been on top of it?
you know what? I have, but it was more, it wasn't because I hadn't read the case. It was because it was a question that I just didn't know the answer to. And in law school, if you don't know the answer, it's the best you don't guess.
Yeah. True
Yeah,
facts.
just
Sorry
pass.
to interrupt you, but continue.
That's okay, no worries. So I guess that was just all to explain the utility of going over your notes before class starts. Um, and then after, say I have class from 8:30 to 1, that happens sometimes. After that, I'll try to get a workout in because I think that's like, it's very important to get some physical exercise in there. If you're going to be sitting for 9 hours a day, you gotta hit the gym. You gotta go on a walk. I don't care what it is, but you should get you get moving. So
Queen's
I do
Art?
something at Queens Arc, man. It's been open, so I've once again been lucky and fortunate that Queens has stayed partially open. So definitely been a privilege. Once I'm done with that, generally I'll have another 3 or 4 hours to work before dinner. And like I told you, I don't really like working past 7. So that last few hours is just get all my readings done in advance, work on anything I need to work on. And yeah, the routine is just work, eat, try to exercise and sleep. Like it's really mundane.
True. And with the transition from undergrad to law school, what would you say was the toughest thing going into law school? Was it the reading, like how much you had to read a kind of like a night, or was it kind of like the difficulty in the evaluations that you were being given?
It's a good question. I think more than anything, it's the way they want you to think. It's actually not the amount of work, and I don't think it's like the reading. I think that's kind of a natural expectation when you go into law school, so it doesn't really catch you by surprise. What I find does or did catch me by surprise was the amount of critical thinking they expect out of you. You can't do a reading like you would regularly do a reading. You have to do a reading, then you have to ask yourself some questions about what you just read and how it applies to the context. It's they really want you critically thinking, and so I think that was the biggest change of pace. That was the hardest thing to adapt to in law school. Yeah, it wasn't so much the work. I find that like inherently, each year you have at school, I think it just comes more natural to expect a little more work. And I don't think it's any different than somebody working a 9 to 5, really. Like that's how I treat it.
True, true. And kind of like going off of what you're saying, can you kind of tell me like what the evaluations have been so far, and like, yeah, like your exams as well? Are they like kind of case-based studies, or like how are they? Like obviously in university, they're MC, like multiple choice, kind of short answers. Like how are they evaluating you guys as first year law students?
So definitely much different than anything you'll find in undergrad. It is mostly case based. So they'll give you a fact pattern, and then they'll ask you, based on the facts given, um, it's up to us to disseminate what the legally relevant issues are, and then we have to address each issue. We have to cover the legal rule that interacts with that legal issue,
Okay.
and then we're expected to give our conclusions, like what we think will happen if it got to a court of law citing precedents and stuff like that. But sometimes there's essay questions. So today I did a torts exam, and one of the questions more or less asked what the social utility or what the policy goals of intentional torts are. Not that that's supposed to mean anything to anybody, but
But for the
it's
viewers and listeners, what's torts? I don't even know what that is.
torts. Okay, that's a good question. That's it's basically, so if you go to the gym and you slip and fall and you hurt yourself and
Okay.
you want to sue the gym, that's a torts case.
Okay. Good example.
Yeah, so it's deeper than just that, but for people who don't really know, it's slip and fall. That's torts.
Okay. True.
Yeah.
Um, First semester, first year of law school, how many exams did you have?
I had 5 exams. We have 6 courses, and I have 5 exams because the sixth course is called Introduction to Legal Skills, and that is just teaches you how to do legal writing. We had to do a closed memo. We have an open memorandum due. Just it's assignments, so we don't have exams for that.
Nice. And Johnny, how did it go? I know you're super busy. It was hard to kind of keep in touch with you and catch up with you. But how was it? And like the exams, they're like you said, were they all case based really? And like were they short answers as well?
Yeah, so like I said, they were case-based and short answer. It just kind of depends on the class, but in terms of how they went, I think that's kind of the reason you hear law students say they put so much effort into them, because we're marked on a curve. So basically, I know that the person next to me's is who I depend on to do well. So I need to do better than other people, which is the reason a lot of people see law school might be as overly competitive, but it doesn't really reflect in how we interact with each other.
True.
Um, but yeah, I think they went well because I mean, and sorry, I was hard to reach, but I just put my phone away basically for the last couple of weeks and only checked it a few times a day. But
No, I
otherwise,
respect
I
that
was just
hustle.
studying.
Yeah, I respect that
Yeah,
hustle, and super proud of you for finishing first semester, being a close friend to you. So it's nice to see that, man. So
thank you.
you are nearing the end of your first semester. Any tips to future incoming first year law students, and what will they be expecting?
My tips for a first year law student is to outline early and often. Just stay on top of your readings. Stay ideally maybe 2 days in advance, so that if they hit you with anything unexpected, then you're fine and you can take a day to deal with that. Otherwise, don't forget about your health, because it is important, and a lot of people do kind of forego personal health to do better in law school. Also, remember that a lot of your grade comes from your exams. So the little things you don't understand right away, it's fine. You have plenty of time. And when you go over them with friends, establish study groups. Um, and I think that's basically it.
True. And I just want to touch base on what Johnny said as well as about yeah, so the boys and I call him Johnny, but his real name is Jonathan. But in terms of like mental health and in terms of that, remember to like seek help, reach out for help. And I'm pretty sure Queens has some pretty good resources for that. So without like for you to pursue success in anything, like take care of your mental health before you pursue that success, because you're gonna be clouded and your judgment's gonna be clouded. And that's what I kind of wanted to say. And exercise, and make sure you get that in, and like it helps a lot. It clears your mind. So
I agree.
upon completion of your law degree, where are you headed, and where do you aim to accomplish?
That's a tough one. That's upon completion of my law degree, I want to be a good lawyer. But where I'm headed is dependent on a lot of things. As somebody who just finished the first semester of my law degree, I think anybody who has ever completed a law degree knows that around this time you know exactly nothing about the law. And so it's kind of naive for me to pick a spot at this point, but generally you have an early decision to make whether or not you want to enter the public interest field, or whether you want to interest the sort of private or civil side of the law as a field of choice. I think I'll probably stick with private law matters, because I entered law school kind of with an interest in business, and so I think I might end up in sort of the private sector. And honestly, I don't have any uh, specific goals yet,
True.
because I need to find out what interests me.
True. Okay, this might be a stupid question, but how long is law school? Is it 2 years?
No, it's actually three.
Okay,
So
true, true.
after this, I have 2 more years, and then you article for 1 year. Then you write your bar exam, and then you're eligible to work as a lawyer.
Nice. Yeah, you're still gonna be
Yeah.
Queen's guy forever.
I don't know about forever, but definitely for longer than I thought.
True. I know you kind of like said that you don't know like specifically what your end goal is, but I don't know if this is a question for you, but what type of lawyer do you want to be, or like have you kind of like showed interest towards one type of specific law, kind of like sector?
Yeah, so I guess just to trail off my last answer, it is really hard for me now, because I don't know if well, for anybody who did like an arts degree in undergrad, it's sort of comparable to how in first year you're told to take psychology, sociology, politics, English, whatever. They're very broad fields. So what I'm learning now is kind of just an introduction and sort of an elementary step into the big fields of law, but nothing specific yet. So, for example, I've never taken a business law course. I don't take courses that are specific enough to tease out a preference yet. So once again, whatever I say now, like I told you, maybe business because I have sort of an ancillary interest in that. But whatever I say now, I know is going to change, rapidly. So it's just it's too early right now to tell.
Okay, true. I know we kind of talk about, I guess, you in the future, but do you have any short-term goals you want to achieve within the next kind of like year, and any long-term goals and aspirations for the future? But let's just start with the short-term goals.
My
Like like
short term.
like short-term goals is in like, do you want to kind of like secure a position in a law firm first year to kind of like build your experience? Like what do you want to achieve in that first year?
That is definitely a goal of mine. Seeing as though things are a little complicated right now, and because a lot of people last year who were supposed to have summer jobs didn't, and so they are more or less backlogged. It's kind of the market's a little flooded right now, so I don't know how realistic the chances of getting into a law firm after your first year are. That is definitely a goal. So ideally, yes, but I'll also have no qualms if I end up working in, another whatever it is. Whatever business I end up working for, I'm going to try to make sure it's somewhere near Toronto, and I'm going to make sure it has some type of relevance. But yeah, I guess definitely as an ideal, getting into a firm in my 1L summer would be up there.
True, man. So let's backtrack a little bit, to the end of undergrad. So what does it take to get into law school? Like, does it take a lot of experience? Like, what exam do you take? Because I know for med school, it's like MCAT and your whole portfolio, since you were young, basically all your ECs. So what does it take for law school?
Yeah. So firstly, it depends on the law school. Each one is different, at least a little bit different. For well, I would say generally, it's good, obviously, to get the highest GPA you can, but with a specific focus on the last 2 years, because a lot of law schools, they ask for a weighted GPA, so they ask for your entire transcript, but they really do place more of an emphasis on your third and fourth year of undergrad. Um, Now, in terms of like extracurriculars, I know that a lot of schools want a bounced resume, so they do want to see that you've been involved in some kind of activity at your school, whether that be intramurals, whether that be a journal, whether that be some kind of whatever type of club that is. They want to see some of that, I know. Um, and in terms of what tests we take to get in, that would be the LSAT, and that would be uh, the one that everyone wants to forget about after they write. But it's interesting. It's not like any test, maybe apart from like EQAO, but I don't really remember that well. It's just we
True.
don't take standardized tests very
Yeah.
often. We're not like Americans who take the SATs and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So it was kind of a curveball, but I took the majority of a summer to study for that. So it was definitely not an easy task, but probably wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. And I mean, do as well as you can on that. But I think in general, schools are looking for scores that approximate 160.
Okay.
So whether or not you get a few points below that, or any number of points above that, you still have a shot. And it's not black and white. That's what I learned. It's sometimes the results don't make sense, and you just have to kind of live with it. But in general, obviously, GPA, LSAT, and extracurriculars.
True. And like for the listeners who are kind of inspired to pursue law, you said 160 or kind of like points above or below. What GPA should they be kind of aiming for in their last 2 years? Would it be like for us, I guess 4.3 is our normal, but say out of four, would it be like a 3.7, 3.8 in their last 2 years? Like what should they be aiming for?
Yeah, so I just want to make clear everything is online. It's all accessible on Google. Each school will they'll publish their records they'll say, they break it down by class. So they'll say, the class of 2023, which I'm in, the average was, a 162, and the average GPA for the last 2 years was a 3.72 or something like that. So they give you the median, but they don't give you the extremes on each tail of the distribution. So you don't really, it doesn't give you an accurate picture, because you could have a lower GPA, you could do better on the LSAT, you could have lower LSAT and lower GPA and really good extracurriculars. They try to balance it out from what I understand, but definitely I think the average for my class was a 3.7, give or take.
Okay, true. And for all the listeners, Queen's University is located in Ontario, Canada. So, what other law schools are there in Ontario? And I know you said like go to Google, look all these things up, but kind of like the notable ones.
Yeah, no, I just did that because I wanted to be at, like, if people really want to know, then they should definitely take a look. But
Facts.
the other ones in Ontario of note, that I can name off the top of my head, at least, there's U of T, there's um, well, Queen's, Western, there's Osgood, which is York University, there's Osgood. I mean, I already said that. So Ryerson actually has a new school, a new law school. I think it might be, the first 2 or 3 years they've done that. So there's that option as well. And Windsor. Windsor's, I can't think of any others in Ontario.
Okay, true.
Yeah.
And then in Canada, I guess UBC maybe.
Oh, Ottawa as well. Ottawa.
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 Okay, cool.
Ottawa Law. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, is the application and like the application process into law school super stressful, or was it super stressful for you, or how did you handle it?
It made sense. I mean, when intuitively, when you think of, I'm gonna apply to a higher learning institution, like what do you think they're gonna ask for? They're gonna ask for a little bit of a personal statement of experience. They're gonna ask for some references, and they're gonna ask for your grades. I thought the application process was standard but stressful. Obviously, if you put a lot of weight on, if you put a lot of pressure on yourself, it's sort of a central goal of yours to make it to law school. Any step in the process is, I think, going to carry a little bit of stress with it, but I think I managed it pretty well. Just I kind of took the approach, whatever happens, it's out of my control. I've done what I can up till now, and so just show them what I have, and if they take me, they do. If they don't, they don't. But it definitely doesn't help after you apply when people are asking you consistently, have you heard back? Have you heard back?
Yeah.
So I guess for anybody listening, if you know somebody who's waiting on results, maybe let them tell you.
Yeah.
I found that the process wasn't that stressful. Maybe the LSAT was probably the most stressful part of the application process, but otherwise in general, it wasn't that bad.
True. I know you kind of talked about three tips you would give, or like some tips that you give to incoming law students, but what would be three things that you would tell kind of like university students who are trying to pursue their dreams going to like law school, like in undergrad right now in like second or first year or third year? Like, what would you tell them?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's something that I think everybody just thinks, oh, I have to get the best grades. I have to get the best this thing. My true advice would be, think about if law school is for you first and foremost, because a lot of people who are in the arts, a lot of people who are doing, psychology, sociology, philosophy, politics, they kind of see it as the natural next step. When you're in a first year politics class and the professor says, raise your hand if you want to go to law school, you see it's roughly, it's 70 to 80% of people have their hands up. So it's kind of just the default position for most people. So I would ask you to think about whether or not you really want to do it, because it's a big sort of investment, both economically and temporally. It's just a lot of your time being taken, as well as money. So think about whether you want to do that or not. But advice in general is obviously just like focus on school, try to do well, uh, try not to do things last minute. I kind of know that's just a general rule anybody can tell you. It's one of the hardest things in the world to do, but just try to. I would also say take your time studying for the LSAT. Don't try to cram it all in, because it's a lot of stuff for people to learn. It's a lot of new material. So Just study hard, kind of stay focused, and yeah, it's just kind of stuff everybody's heard before.
True. And Johnny, you did politics in undergrad. Is there any specific undergrad degree that an aspiring law student should take, or is it kind of like all over the board? Like, so say I took science and then took LSAT. Are there any prerequisites to the LSAT, like the specific courses that I need to take? Like, what would be your recommendation in terms of the undergraduate degree?
So another good question. The LSAT is actually a zero prior knowledge required test. So there's nothing of substance you have to remember for the test. It it's more or less, it's similar to like a Wonderlic test. So it's basically they have three sections: logical reasoning, logic games, what is it, reading comprehension. And basically the trick is to try to do it in the 35 minutes per section you're given. um, there is no undergrad that prepares you for that. It's kind of a test of analytical thinking abilities. Maybe critical thinking ability is the better way to put that. But there's people in my section in law school who did engineering. There's people who did business. There's people who did bio. There's people who did chem. There's people who did medical sciences. There's a lot of people who did politics and philosophy and sociology. I'd say anybody. My cousin, who's a lawyer, did business at Laurier. It really doesn't matter. It just, if the law interests you, it doesn't matter what your undergrad is. And I also don't think there's a particular undergraduate program that could prepare anybody for the LSAT specifically.
True, and that's why I think lawyers and law students have brilliant minds because they come from very diverse backgrounds and very diverse undergraduates and like undergraduate degrees. So that's awesome for the listeners to know.
Yeah.
Perfect. So rewinding back to grade 12, why did you choose Queen's University? Because we wouldn't have met, or like if I didn't choose Queen's, why did you choose Queen's University?
That's another good one that the answer, the truthful answer is because I knew a lot of people who were coming to Queens, and I had done one tour of Queens before saying yes. And I really loved the campus. I liked how it was kind of a sandwich campus. There was, there's the lake, you got campus, and then you have kind of the student ghetto,
Hub,
which
yeah.
is where all the students live, the hub, and then you have downtown. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. You never walk further than 20 minutes. It's like
Yeah.
there's not much more I can ask for really from a campus. Um, I was really close to going to either U of T or McGill. Um, it was, almost a last minute decision, at least between Queens and McGill. Um, for those wondering why not U of T, I just wanted to get out of Toronto. Really, I'd lived there my whole life, so I wanted to kind of experience something new. And Queens was the one I chose, and I'm happy I did.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you choose Queens as well.
Yeah.
Chose Queens events, and tell me about the social life at Queens and why it like kind of like differentiates itself from other schools. Because like going back to HOCO, I didn't go to other HOCOs, but I know you've been to maybe other HOCOs. Maybe could you kind of differentiate between the two and why a lot of people give Queens like the up on kind of like the social life?
Yeah, I think we run the risk of some Queens exceptionalism here. Like, I think in general, no matter where you go, you can find that great social life. I actually do think it pertains to what I just said about the structure of the campus. So when you think about it, what other school in Ontario has the pier, right? Like, there's none. There's the pier, there's the campus, and
Yeah,
then there's downtown. You have everything right there. I think that's what lends itself more. When I go to other schools for any social event, I notice how far everything is apart. It's almost like an archipelago. Everything's so far from each other. Whereas at Queens, everything's condensed. So whenever something's happening, the kind of the sense of community is all in one focused area. So that's, I think, what produces the effect that you're talking about.
true. And I never like actually visited Queens, but when I got here, I really did like how everything was super close. Like you said, you can kind of like go to another person's house, be there, chill with the guys, watch football, and then go to another person's house, or just kind of just go home. And I
Hmm.
liked how downtown was super close too. And I think the best part too was just that you didn't need a car really because everything was in your reach and you could walk anywhere within 20 minutes. And I
Even
really
though you had one, eh?
what?
Even though you had one,
Even though I had a car, yeah, but that was for other purposes.
came in handy.
Game in handy. So, what are the three things you will miss when you leave Queen's University? But I know it's going to be a couple years, so
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I did for a time think that my time at Queens was done. After fourth year, I didn't anticipate coming back for, that fifth year. I thought I might just go straight to law school, but then I decided to take that year just to kind of collect myself and just think about what I was going to be doing next. And I really do, uh, I guess, thank myself for taking that fifth year and staying at Queens, because I just like being in Kingston, especially as a student. It just feels different when you're here surrounded by other students and like-minded people. It's such a high concentration of people your own age and who are kind of more like you. Then when you go home, I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just that you have to kind of seek that out. So I'm gonna miss that. I'm just gonna miss walking down Princess Street and running into somebody I know, stopping for a quick conversation, then continuing on. The odds of that, downtown Toronto are pretty low. So
yeah.
just the familiarity with the people on
Yeah,
campus.
for sure. And I was just gonna say too, Johnny. So you guys like kept my youth going when I first met you guys and like all the guys, and that was like insane. And like you said too, kind of like staying in Kingston and being surrounded by that kind of culture. Like it's not a bad thing, but at the same time, you're not really like adulting, I guess. Like unless you're a student. But as soon as I moved to Toronto, it was like such a game changer in terms of not doing things like in terms of going out and like being with your friends all the time. You're kind of just like grinding like on top of your stuff and going to work. And so I think that's the biggest change too. And that's what I miss too, just being able to walk downtown or be in the gym and see everyone. So for sure.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
right.
And I
So
definitely, oh, sorry, what's
wait,
that?
yeah, yo, sorry, go.
That's okay. No, I was just gonna say I think that's the beauty of school at our age.
Yeah.
You feel like, especially law students will complain all the time about how much work is necessary to do well, how much time we spend on readings, and how hard classes. But then I think of, any of my peers who are back at home doing work like you. It's a different grind. You guys have a set time. You have to grind between this and this time. Your flexibility is very low, and the responsibility here, it's academic responsibility, it's intellectual responsibility, but at the end of the day, it's a different type of responsibility, and one that I definitely cherish for now, because I have a friend in third year who's on his way out, about to start articling, and now he's kind of just lamenting the fact he has to leave. So for anybody in school right now, like, appreciate this time.
True. And I miss school. So I'm like applying for masters this year at U of T. So, and possibly at Queens as well. But I miss that academic like flexibility, kind of like no responsibilities that like kind of like I don't know, paying the bills and stuff. Like I'll still have to do that, but I miss being a
Yeah.
student. I really miss learning. And even though I do learn on like a daily basis, I do miss being an undergrad student. That was like one of the best times of my life in terms of academics and just social life. So now, like,
100%.
yeah. So now for like more chill questions to kind of end off the podcast.
Yes,
You
sir.
ready?
Of course.
All right. So I just want to thank you so far, Johnny. So what are your hobbies when you do have some spare time? Because I know you're a busy guy.
When I have spare time, there's a few things I love, and I always find myself going back to them. One is, working out, exercising. It's not a chore. I don't find it to be a chore. It's definitely something I enjoy doing. So that's one big thing. Or playing sports. I enjoy playing pickup basketball whenever I get the chance. I enjoy running, whatever it might be. And otherwise, it's watching sports. It's watching a lot of football, a lot of basketball, hockey, whatever it might be. I'll watch it. And I foresee myself really picking up golf pretty hard this summer. Honestly, it's yeah, it's fun. I always thought it was a boring a boring sport, but after you start playing a bit, you start to kind of appreciate and be able to start watching the sport itself. So yeah, I guess my free time is exercise, watching sports, little bit of investing on the side, kind of just paying attention to that whole thing.
Yeah, I forgot that you do investing. Um, what's your favorite sport? Like you like
My
that you watch?
that that's tough. Like I couldn't tell you between basketball and football. They kind of both hold 1A and 1B. For me, it's I can't get enough of either of them.
True. What are your top three musical artists right now? Who are you rocking with?
That's yeah, that's a tough one. Who am I? Let me check my Spotify real quick.
It sounds good. Real quick.
Well, okay, so Mac Miller is one of
Okay.
them for sure. I've been listening to a
R.I.P.
lot of him
R.I.P. Mac Miller.
recently. Definitely. I've been going back and listening to a lot of Nas. So he's been right there. And then lastly,
Say
I
it.
would have to say some Pro Era. So going back and listening to Pro Era. It's all mostly hip hop, but I mix it up here and there. But I'd say
Nice.
those are the top three right now.
True. Um, I know you didn't mention any shows, but have you been watching any shows during the pandemic when you do have time?
Not really. I have to say I'm not a big show guy. I'll watch shows. I've watched The Office and sitcoms like that just kind of in the background, but I'm not following any series. I know there's like the Queen's Gambit and all that stuff's out right now, and
Yeah.
everyone's saying good things about it, but I'm not. Are you watching anything?
I'm not watching anything at all. Kind of just, busy grinding work and then getting this podcast up and live and letting listeners listen to your insights and other guests' insights. So no time for that.
Very good.
None of that.
Yeah.
None of that,
Got
this
you.
and that.
Oh yeah.
All right. So we're both basketball fans. Who's your team? Because I know who you rock with, but do you have any other teams or who is your favorite team? No, man.
No, I'm joking. My real team is the San Antonio Spurs. Um, yeah, you laugh. Everyone laughs
I know that though.
because well, yeah, no, yeah, but I'm just saying it's not a sexy choice. It's the Spurs. They play fundamental basketball. It's Coach Popovich. It was Duncan. It was
Tony
Mr. Tony
Parker.
Parker, Ginobili. Gotta love the history. I'm still a Spurs fan, but for what it's worth, I think we're on the come up.
No, yo, I think so too. You guys got some good players. Murray's good.
Yep, we got a good young core growing.
Yeah, I like that. And DeMar DeRozan's hair, he's killing it.
Hey, I enjoy it. He's mixing it up.
Yo, I respect that too. So you told me your favorite team. Who's your favorite player, or name a couple of your favorite players right now?
Luka Doncic
Luca,
is definitely has come on the scene. He's
straight
proven
fire, dude.
himself. Have to say, wasn't a believer at first, but I have no choice now. He's
Dude,
he's
he's a
proven himself.
killer. He's a killer.
Yeah. Then you got Giannis, obviously. I mean, winning DPOY and MVP in the same year. That's killer. Good for him. And aside from the obvious ones, just ones who have been around forever, there's a few guys who are probably going to show out this year. The rookies, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, all those guys.
LaMelo, yeah, yeah,
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how they all do.
true. All right, so this is my favorite question, I guess. The GOAT debate. Who is the GOAT right now? Well, who is the GOAT? I guess like we're the younger generation, and we've only got to watch like LeBron, Kobe. I don't know if you got to watch like
Yeah.
MJ stuff, but who would you say is your GOAT?
I think I might be a little bit of an outlier for people my age. Just I know about basketball history, and I have gone back and I've watched
All right.
tons of
Let's hear it.
the Jordan era games. It to me, it honestly is, and this is going to be a very law student thing to say, but it actually does just depends on your own definition of greatness. Because
Yeah.
who's the GOAT? Who's the greatest player of all time? If you ask me, I have two ways of thinking about it. One way is if you had to pick one player for 10 years, who would you take? For me, that's Michael Jordan. His
Okay.
best 10 years were by far the best 10 years of any player
Okay.
ever. If you were to ask me who I'm starting a franchise with, and that's it, it's LeBron.
Yeah.
because
Respect that.
look what he's entering year 18. He hasn't lost a step. If anything, he's gained. Oh, I know. Sorry, I'm just realizing you have him in the background there.
Yeah, and Kobe.
Yeah,
You got Kobe in the
and
back
Kobe.
too.
Yeah, definitely. If I'm starting a franchise, it's LeBron, and genuinely, I think it's 1A and 1B, and
Yeah.
like it's just tough. It's tough.
And I was just gonna say it too. The people on like the media who do debate this, it's just stupid. It's like different eras. They both have like when LeBron does retire, like he's gonna be missed, and people are gonna like be so sad about that. I'm gonna be sad about it. But I do agree with what you're saying because in terms of winning, Michael Jordan was the best at winning. In terms of all around basketball player, I would say LeBron James. Like what he does to his teammates and what like I guess the pressure he like has as well, but he's able to like improve the players around him. You know what I mean? Like I know MJ was like a straight killer, but LeBron didn't have that mentality until later in his career. But I think his basketball IQ is just insane. But I do have to say, I always have said like LeBron's the GOAT, but I do have to give my respects to MJ, and I do think he's like the winning GOAT, like the ones that's like one that's the best at winning.
I think it's just a few things. Firstly, that MJ isn't given his credit for his playmaking. Averaged, roughly 6 assists a game
Six,
for his
yeah,
career. He won the Defensive Player of the Year and MVP. I'd say he's a far better
straight
defensive
killer, dude.
player. He has, like he has those attributes, but then you look at LeBron. You're right, makes the whole team better. And I do have to ask myself if I put LeBron in Michael Jordan's shoes. He was drafted by the Bulls. He had Scottie Pippen, he had Rodman, and he had Ron Harper, Luke Longley. He had Steve Kerr. He
Steve
had the
Kerr, yeah.
like he had sort of the big three back then, and he would have never left for baseball, stuff like that. Take on all that into consideration, and we might be speaking about somebody with more than six
I think so too,
championships.
man. I think so too. And
Yeah. So yeah, it's tough. It's
yeah, I just like
impossible to
this.
say.
Yeah, I just like dislike the fact that people who like talk about super teams nowadays is just like, man, like back in the day when Jordan played, he like you gotta respect the fact that he had great like players around him as well. Like
I mean, the only real contest to the idea of a super team is that it's free agents making their own decisions these days. Back in the
that's their own
day,
decisions.
explain to me how a team with Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, those are three first ballot Hall of Famers and
Yes.
arguably two goats of their positions.
Yeah.
And you're gonna like that is a super team. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar went from the Bucks to the Lakers.
Lakers.
There have always been when Bob Cousy and Bill Russell play together and win 11 championships out of 13 seasons.
Yeah.
Uh, Back then, that's a super team. When you have the Celtics with Larry Bird, um, uh,
Havlicek.
gosh, Havlicek, who's the power forward there? I can't believe I'm blanking.
I remember.
It doesn't matter. Either way, there's been super teams forever, and now people are, I guess, only up in arms because it's free agents making their own decisions.
Yeah. And I think that's just like just enjoy basketball and like enjoy what like they're doing. Like,
At the end of the day, it does boil down to that. Just enjoy the
yeah,
basketball.
true. So that was a good conversation. Also, RIP Kobe. You deserve respect.
Definitely.
You're also one of the goats. All right. So currently, who is the best basketball player in the game right now? All around best player.
I'll be honest. If Kevin Durant is 90% of what he was before his injury, that's my best player in the league. Otherwise, I might have to say Anthony Davis.
Okay, so Kevin Durant, I think he's the most talented player in the league. And from preseason, he looks silky smooth. And I think he will be the best player this year.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think so too. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right, let's do some predictions, and we'll go back to this at the end of the year when the NBA is over. But who do you think will win the NBA championship this year?
Okay. Well, my prediction here completely hinges upon injury, obviously.
Yeah,
Injuries do not, I would say injuries preclude this prediction from being a cold take if we come back to it at the end of the season. So I would say that the Lakers are going to repeat.
respect.
And I think the Nets are going to be coming out of the East and
Clippers.
playing the Lakers in the finals.
I think so too. I think the Lakers made huge transactions this off season, and I think they have like a better team than last year.
That's definitely arguable, isn't it? They
Yeah,
have Montrezl Harrell now.
yeah, and then Dennis Schroeder's also a pretty good point guard. He can create a shot. But you have the Nets too. They have decent coaching staff. Like we don't know what Steve Nash has to offer, but you have talented players. You don't
Steve
know.
Nash and Amari Stoudemire
Yeah, dude.
coming
And then
back
like
together again.
yeah, then you have great talents like Kyrie Irving, DeAndre Jordan too. Like people sleep on him, but he's still like a decent presence and like in the backcourt, the front court.
Front court,
Front
yeah.
court, front court. Yeah, but yeah. Okay, let's move on from the NBA. So I know you're a huge football fan. Who is your team?
Another. This is worse than the Spurs. I mean, this is like really embarrassing. But my team is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
There
Yeah.
is no reason on earth, and it's in all likelihood you won't meet another Jaguars fan ever because they have a very small fan base. I will say AFC Championship game 3 years ago, and it only took us 3 years to ruin the entire team. So we'll see where we go next. Looking like we might get Trevor Lawrence as our next franchise QB, so I'm excited for that.
That would be fire.
That would be huge for us. I'm also, just by proxy of being a Torontonian, also a Bills fan. Like anytime the Bills do well, I'm a happy guy.
I love that culture, dude. I love the culture
I
of the
mean, you
Bills.
have to be. My dad used to go. My dad used to go to Bills games with his work buddies back in the day, and it's just kind of. I think Toronto's team.
Dude, they're so hype. They're so hype at tailgates
They're
and stuff.
amazing. I love them.
Um, like these weren't questions, but I just want to ask you, who do you think's the best QB in the league right now? You're a
It's
big football
by
fan, so I just
Well,
kind of
no,
want
it's by no. Hey, listen, it's by far and away Patrick Mahomes. It's not even that close. I think it's him. It's
Russell
a
Wilson.
blank space, and then it's Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and maybe guys like Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson belong in
Dude,
that
those
in
two
that
guys. Yeah, I love those
same
guys.
category as well. I don't. Yeah, it's tough. Mr. Brady might be right there under, but
Old
I
guy.
don't know.
Old guy
Yeah,
for
he's
sure.
he's a little
Um,
weathered.
there's a lot of good wide receivers out there, but who would you say is the most exciting wide receiver right now?
My favorite wide receiver since I've started watching football has and always will be Julio Jones. Um,
The GOAT.
I think he's the best wide receiver in the game. But this year, it's guys like Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf.
DK Metcalf's a beast, bro.
Got to give Hopkins his. I gotta give respect to Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill, and the league leader in yards is a tight end. It's Travis Kelce.
He's
Which
been
is
so good.
crazy. Yeah, I don't remember the last time a tight end led the league in yards. Maybe it's never happened, but
Maybe
yeah,
Gronk. I don't remember.
it's possible because
True.
him or Tony Gonzalez or something. But I don't know.
True. I don't follow football that much, but I don't know what week they're in. But who do you predict to win the Super Bowl this year?
I think they've only got 1 or 2 games left, but the Chiefs. It's they. Not only do they have an amazing offense, their defense is nothing to ignore. They have Frank Clark. They have a good defensive line. They have Tyrann Mathieu as their safety, the Honey Badger. He's great. Breeland's a good cornerback. I don't know about their linebackers. The run game isn't that good. But the point is their defense is serviceable and their offense is legendary. So
Very
I think
legendary.
I don't think you can't stop them. So if you don't score every time, then it's going to be hard for anybody to win.
Facts. Facts. So we've reached the end of our podcast. And Johnny, do you have anything to say to the viewers or listeners?
Uh, a parting message. I guess just whatever goals you have, keep them sort of in the periphery. Kind of always have them at the back of your mind, and just kind of center your actions. Goal rational action, right? Just whatever approach you're taking to your studies or to the precursor to studies. Just kind of keep the goal in mind, and you can manifest it.
Respect that. Manifestation. So, with all that being said, we've come to an end. And I just want to thank you, Johnny, for coming on the podcast to give your insights about law and talking about your first year as a law student at Queen's University. We got to do this again, maybe at the end of your first year at Queen's, and it was nice catching up with you, my guy. So I hope the listeners and viewers enjoy this talk. He's one of my good friends, and hopefully we can, chill when you get back. But other than that, my guy, hope you take care and peace.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It was a pleasure to come here and talk to you. I see you've posted a few videos before me, and you're doing a good job with this podcast. So keep it up, and I look forward to coming and speaking to you whenever I have the chance again.
Thanks, my guy. Well, appreciate y'all. So take care.